For me at least, and for my purposes, Colour E-Ink will replace an iPad eventually, but is it ready yet? I think for just something on your desk next to your keyboard to allow you to make notes, there's something about the E-Ink which is like a notepad, and people still want something on their desk which they can make notes on, that they can keep track of their ideas, that they can use as intuitively with the pencil, and that's clearly where the iPad is aiming. However, it isn't there yet. It's a really wonderful device with so many different purposes. It's too close to a laptop. It is more like a laptop than like a notebook. Whereas E-Ink tablets are just such a wonderful place to lay out your ideas. To have something on your desk which is to replace that notebook that ordinarily sits beside your keyboard. E-Ink is the answer compared to the iPad. But is Colour E-Ink there yet? Is it ready? In many ways, yes it is. It's absolutely fabulous. The iPad is excellent. It can do so much more. But if you want something that you can just carry to the sofa or take out to the garden to sit and carry on working on, maybe you need to mark up PDFs, then the iPad, it isn't far enough away from that computer. Really, they've spent such a long time making the iPad like a laptop that I think a lot of us would find ourselves using the iPad alongside a notebook still. Maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments if you're still using a notepad next to your tablet computer or your laptop. For example, when I was scripting out this video, I laid out my first thoughts on this, which is the Kindle Scribe, which is currently the device, the E-Ink device that I'm currently evaluating. It does look great, the E-Ink screen here on the Kindle Scribe, but I think we're all waiting for excellent Colour E-Ink tablets to come. It can't do everything yet though, the Kindle Scribe, by some distance. You want to be able to share that very same screen with colleagues in a meeting. You want to be able to present information to colleagues or bosses in the same way as you can on the iPad, but you want it to be more like paper. You see, E-Ink tablets, digital paper, lets me relax into thinking. It really helps me get into that flow. Both these devices are starting to allow you to use the pen like a thinking tool. People who want to use E-Ink, they're people that engage with the written word. And the Kindle is great for that. With the iPad, and although this is the larger one, of course, if you want to be able to sit comfortably, you can do that just as well. The smaller iPads maybe being a preference if that's your main concern. But the iPad is just not like paper. It's heavy, and it's also locked down to iOS's system. Now, although the iPad apps are really excellent, and I'm going to tell you about one of the excellent iPad apps that you can get, the sponsor of today's video, UPDF, a little bit later on in the video. Above all, we're looking for a tablet that's going to help us to think. We want to be able to relax into that thinking, to get into the flow, to be able to mark up and edit our PDFs, to be able to read and to be able to learn in as close as possible a way to books, but with those excellent digital features. And this is why Kindle is not quite ready yet, because it doesn't have the extra digital features that we expect from our tablet. So is this your choice? Are we looking at here, this is the Bigme B1 Pro, or the Bigme InkNote, which is a similar device to this, but also brings cameras to bring it even closer to the iPad experience. We want to get into that state where we do our best work, in that flow state. And that's how knowledge workers think, is words on a page. Well, I certainly do anyway, and when I do get into that state, when I do get into that flow, my work is a real pleasure. The problem is that I would say the options that there are in Colour E-Ink, they just aren't there in terms of software yet. So let's hope that books enter the Colour E-Ink space soon in one of their larger readers. Because the Neo reader, for instance, is such a great place to mark up and edit PDFs and allow you to share them and send them on. And because it's Android, you can get them from the cloud and share them back to the cloud in a number of different ways. And that is one way that iOS isn't quite there yet, in my opinion, is in terms of file handling. But what's going to bring you back at the moment to LCD tablets like the iPad or the larger Android tablets are that apps are actually optimized for LCD screens more so than they are for E-Ink screens. But that's not to say that lots of different companies, for instance Bigme here, have done a great job of optimizing this screen for Colour E-Ink. I mean, it does look fabulous on here. And I've certainly given the choice where I'm going to read a document, I'm going to do it over here on my Colour E-Ink screen. But if you've got to just pick one, it's a more difficult choice. And let's face it, iOS is where the majority of amazing apps are. I think iOS apps are just better than Android apps are. And one of those great apps is UPDF. UPDF is a fully featured PDF reader and editor, and they're today's video sponsor, so thanks very much UPDF. UPDF stands for Universal, Productive, Delightful and Fast. It's certainly all of these things. And you can see my full overview video of all of the features of UPDF just straight after watching this one, of course. My two favourite benefits of UPDF are that you can have full control to change text and images without ever leaving the PDF format. You can resize or replace images, and you can change fonts, you can change the size or the colour or even the content of typed text. And if you have a scanned document, you can use its fast and accurate text recognition to edit the text or to copy out the document to use it elsewhere. You can encrypt and you can organise your PDFs here in this delightful interface. UPDF is available on all platforms, Windows and Mac and iOS, which is iPhone and iPad, and on Android. Here it is looking great on the iPad. Really like the fact that it comes up with the standard Apple tools here. Here it is looking great on Colour Ink. Right now you can get a 40% discount by following the link in the description, and you can use one account across all your devices. And hurry, because if you get there before Christmas, there's a 56% discount. Thanks so much to UPDF for sponsoring this video. The future for Colour Ink is bright, but for right now, the software isn't quite there. Right now, the king of the software in terms of ink is books. If you want productivity and seamless software, then still go for books, but that's not a perfect situation yet because we're still here in black and white ink. If you're waiting for books devices to bring out a colour solution, then leave that in the comments because I hope books will see this. Wait a minute, what about the big phone with a stylus? Either one of the Samsung Note devices or maybe this, which is the Fold 3. Well, firstly, one problem with the Fold is that the screen always gets blooming dirty. But I just find with the Fold, although I really like it, I love having the big screen in my pocket, it's a wonderful OLED screen, I find that I don't particularly use the Note side of things, although again it can do all the things, it's got a text recognition. I don't find myself getting into that focused kind of flow state for work when I use this. It's more of a personal organizer and pleasure device, really. It doesn't really give you that feeling of replacing notebooks like the Eink tablets do. And that's what we're after. It doesn't have that paper-like feeling, and it doesn't help me to think like a notebook does. So it's an iPad or a Tab Ultra if you want to live with just one device. Tab Ultra is brilliant. And maybe what you really want is an Eink tablet and a lightweight laptop. My current recommendation if you want a lightweight laptop and an Eink tablet is probably to stick with the Note Air 2 Plus, because this is much more like a notebook, whereas the Tab Ultra is getting closer to a PC replacement. And my current recommendation of a small and light laptop is going to be the HP Envy 360. It won't break the bank and it's really excellent. It's got an excellent keyboard, excellent travel for something of that size. Okay, the keyboard isn't quite getting as close to a mechanical keyboard feeling, but it is close. And what about these two keyboards? The iPad keyboard is something I couldn't live with long term, I'm going to be entirely honest with you. The Boox keyboard though, however, is something that you could live with. The iPad keyboard is slightly larger, which I suppose has got something in its benefit, but the iPad keyboard keys are so mushy, it's never going to be a pleasure to type on. Okay, it'll be fine if you just really quickly need to thrash out an email or something, but I'm never going to be using this for long-term typing, whereas I could see myself actually writing on the Boox Tab Ultra for some time. The nice thing that I could do with it is you can actually use the voice recognition at the same time as using the keyboard. And here's one of the great benefits of using the Boox Tab Ultra, which is the voice recognition, and then you can go back with the keyboard and you can actually make your corrections. I mean, that's fabulous. Sure, you can do that on the Apple, I'm sure. Sure, you can do that directly on Apple as well. You can do that directly in their notes. And then that would be the main use case for this keyboard for me, would be just allowing you to type out something quickly with the voice recognition, but then to be able to correct with this keyboard. I'm not going to want to type for any period of time on this keyboard. And then there is Scribble versus the Boox. With the pen you can type anywhere. So I find that the Scribble is actually less accurate than the Boox input for me anyway, and your experience is going to vary depending on your handwriting neatness and your handwriting speed. I do find that the Boox is very easy to make corrections afterwards as well. It's getting better though on the iPad. If you want to write for long periods of time, then you should definitely use dictation and then a keyboard to actually make corrections. This will allow you to make a lot more content in less time. Scribble then for me just really ends up being something to enter text into text fields. So it needs to be accurate for things like email addresses, which of course it's not going to do a very good job of guessing. So it's a difficult one. Whereas just for entering into text fields like search or email addresses, I do find I can work with the Boox really quite well. Then there's battery life, and using this all day at work, I would have to charge this overnight, which is what you'd expect from a large tablet. I have to charge my phone overnight. I'm not surprised about that. However, with an Eink tablet, you're using it all day and you're going to charge it once a week probably, depending again on what you do with it. If I was screencasting all day every day, I probably would only get a couple of days out of this as well. Then there's the main benefit, which is the eye strain. Eink is just designed for reading and working with documents for long periods of time. That's the main benefit. When I was using the iPad as my planner, I found I was getting to the end of the day and having that same problem that I get when I'm here at this computer working with these screens all day. My eyes get really tired. And I know that different people have different experiences with that. Some people aren't as bothered as others, but I find that actually just having some of my day looking down at this Eink screen gives my eyes that little bit of break to allow me to continue my work. And I don't have a job where I spend a lot of time looking at screens, but when I was using this as my planner, that was doubling or even maybe tripling my time looking and using at screens. Lastly, there's the pen feel, and well, if you really want pen feel, then maybe go for the Note Air 2 rather than the Tab Ultra, because the Tab Ultra does have a slicker pen feel. It's still a good and very comfortable pen feel, whereas the iPad, loads of people find this not to be the best pen feel. I have a Doodoo screen protector on here, which gives it a bit more of a frictiony surface, which is nice both for touch and for drawing and for writing. I like that, that's really useful. The companies that make Eink tablets spend a lot of time looking at their pen, how it feels and how close it is to paper. So if you're after that, Eink is the way to go. Lastly, integration. Honestly, I feel that iPad apps are just way better than Android apps. They just are. Apart from one thing, which is moving files around. iPad is not quite there in terms of Android, because Android is really designed for the people who are maybe a little bit more comfortable at actually using their apps and managing the files. Most Android devices now come with a proper file manager that allows you to manage the files, whereas in iPad, they just never give you access to the root of the thing. They never give you access to all of the directories. So files that are stored within an app are forever locked within that app and very hard to get at. There's this kind of like, we're putting them all up to the cloud for you, fine, but I just find every single time I want to move a large set of files, maybe I want to export a whole load of photos or videos or something like that, I always have an issue with this machine. It just isn't easy to move files around, whereas here I can always go right to the root of the file system and I can find there, if a app is storing files within that, well, I can go into that apps folder and I can find the files that I need. I never have any issues finding a file on an Android device. I always have issues finding a file on an Apple device. So is Colour Eink ready for prime time yet? Yes, the technology is there. The technology is very, very good in my opinion. It's not perfect, let's face it. I'm really looking forward to trying out the gallery, the Eink gallery, which is supposedly quite slow, but has a better, more accurate, more true to paper color rendering, because instead of being a color filter which is having to use reflected light and to filter out different colors, it actually has pixels of CMYK, which is the kind of 3 colors that we use for printing ink. That should be really exciting. So will that be too much of a trade-off? The gallery can't do what this color e-ink can, which is to sort of smoothly scroll. I say smoothly scroll. This is a really large PDF, an unnecessarily large PDF that I've just gone into there. And this is not the UPDF app, by the way, this is the BigMe preloaded PDF reader app. The gallery will have to sort of take a moment to actually print the whole screen. So that is really going to come down to, once again, the software integration, the software implementation of that. Can they give us software which makes that experience usable or not? That will be an interesting comparison to make. The question we're still asking really is books versus iPad, rather than just generally e-ink versus iPad. I've got that video right here if you want to know more.